when I return to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Mr. Naruhodo, what on earth were you playing at just now? Rather, what on earth were you playing at all along? My hypothesis, my amazing hypothesis. You've been picking holes in it from the start. Sorry about that, but you promised me. You said you'd prove that dratted explosion was an accident, not murder. You said you'd keep my precious invention from falling into anyone else's hands. But all you've done so far is try to undermine me. Yes, I did make you a promise, you're right. I said that I'd believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. But I also told you I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there's an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there? But if I just run through some equations... Yes, you see, it's because my work is incomplete. Perhaps it is. Nevertheless, a man died as a consequence, didn't he? No. Oh, no. You're right. You're so right. It's all my fault. And I have no right to blame you for my failures. I'm a disaster, not just as a scientist, but as a human being. Well, that might be a little over the top. And while we're on the subject, what about Barrack? He's being awful. Claiming his old university friend to be a murderer, you mean? He's a disaster, not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being. Oh, but no, wait, he's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapiens anymore. Glad that's cleared up. Can I double-check something with you? Yes? What? The machine and demonstration you prepared, they were based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved. I drew the plans for the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with the firm belief that science is the only future. So yes, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet, but please, Mr. Naruhodo, you must believe in it. All right, Professor, I understand. Counsel, bailiff, defendant, score. Prosecutions, witnesses are ready to take the stand. The court is about to be in session again. Make your way into the courtroom, please. It all hinges on that demonstration. If the professor's hypothesis is sound as he claims, it leaves him as the only person who could possibly have killed the victim. But on the other hand, Mr. Sholmes was adamant. A practical implementation, such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition, is quite impossible. So really, what should I be trying to prove here? Good question. 11 a.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready for the new witnesses to testify? The prosecution is ready, my lord. As is the defense, my lord. So, Lord Van Zeeks, I believe these next witnesses saw the demonstration on the day in question with their own eyes. Indeed they did. And as luck would have it, one of them is a police detective. So the testimony we are about to hear can be considered highly reliable. I don't know about that based upon previous cases. Perfect. A detective of all people. The prosecution's stance remains unchanged. Though it ended in tragedy, the demonstration on the day in question was scientifically sound. And consequently, the sole person with the opportunity to have committed this act of murder is the only other individual to have been present on the stage at the time, the accused. Thank you, counsel. The prosecution's position is clear. So bring forth your witnesses now. Bailiff, show the witnesses in. The witnesses whose proximity to the incident on the day in question will clarify the truth unequivocally. Jesus Christ. Two more voices? Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court to hear. My name is Balthasar Luna. I am the impresario of all the hot air balloons in the vicinity of the experimental stage. My name is Willem Gostrik Sigismund Ornstein. I have come to the great exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia. I am very rich. Inspector Gino Lestrade, Scotland Yard. I'm giving you the other inspector's voice. Great. I'm a great detective. Even Airlock Sholmes agrees. I was on security duty at the exhibition and I got to go up in one of them balloons. It was amazing. Gina, again. She did mention that she'd seen the disaster from up in a balloon, actually, didn't she? And she clearly loved every minute of it. There were 3 balloons flying near the public experimentation stage when the incident occurred. 2 of these witnesses were in one such balloon at the time, and saw events unfold from the skies above. You make it sound like they were in the clouds. It was only an altitude of circa 60 feet, very low. Well, you can't say nothing if you fly too... You can't say nothing if you fly too high, can you? 60 feet. About 18 meters, then. 60 feet. Thank you for your introductions. Now we will give your formal testimony for the court. Kindly describe exactly what you witnessed, especially those of you who had a vantage point above the stage. "60 feet in the air. It was an incident terrible. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. I think I gotta go with the might of Mario in there. There's this huge bang from the stage, and in the next second, another bang in the sky beside it. Beside us. Fuck, I better read. And from amidst the smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere. The cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower. I think I'm getting into his voice now. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. I'm not doing her voice anymore. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That is most extraordinary collective account, I must say. Did I just clarify something? There's a detail in the witness's testimony that I've not heard any mention of until now. Specifically, that there were 2 explosions? More precisely, 2 explosions in 2 separate places, yes. When the demonstration began, the balloon carrying the 2 witnesses was around here. There were other balloons in the area nearby at the time, carrying other passengers as well, to be clear. Then, as power was supplied to the machine for the demonstration, the first explosion occurred. The so-called bird cage that contained the victim had disappeared from the stage, and a moment later, the second explosion occurred, directly adjacent to the balloon carrying the witnesses. The bird cage appeared at the site of the explosion, subsequently to plummet down into the crystal tower. I was very surprised. Suddenly, a cage appeared before my eyes with the person inside. The blast was so hot, but I didn't want to miss a thing, so I kept my eyes wide. I just realized he's got a flame in his hat there. I still have lots of money. And precisely, who is this curious infant? I'm told he is of a noble Bohemian... He is a... Fuck me. I am told he is a young noble of Bohemian royalty. Apparently he disguised himself in order to steal unnoticed into the great exhibition. Yeah, I'm here in London on a sightseeing trip with my elementary school. We don't have the benefit of a child's point of view in the testimony. This episode is terrible for me. Do we really need that? When I remove my mask, this is what I look like. Yes, I see. A delightful face, I'm sure. Yeah, everybody says so. Great disguise, then. The point is, the testimony of these witnesses further substantiates the facts for the court. Namely, that despite ending in an explosion, instantaneous kinesis was successfully demonstrated. And furthermore, that until the arrival of the police, no one approached the crystal tower where the victim fell. Therefore, only the accused who was with Mr. Assman on the stage could possibly have committed the murder. Yes, thank you, counsel. The prosecution's views on the matter are quite clear. So the defense's cross-examination now, please. Yes, my lord. Incidente terrible.
Hold it!
Okay. There were 3 balloons flying above the experimentation stage at the time, I understand. See, all 3 of them, my bellissimi bambini. They were very popular, signor. Some people will pay £10 for one ride. £10? It's more than my annual stipend. £20 a month, that is my pocket money. Royals have all the luck. I got up there for free, I did. Played the L.R. worked for Her Majesty's police card, you know? Right, detectives have all the luck. If they're so popular, why would you only be operating such a small number of balloons, though? Because if I have too many in the skies, they would crash into each other. The operators for the balloons were decided by lots, each operator manning a particular area. I don't know what I've done to your voice, but now you're doing something completely. See, and the zone above public experimentation stage is the most profitable. The other impresarios, they hate me. Thank you, witnesses. I think the court has a clear picture of the arrangements for balloon rides at the exhibition. Perhaps we could hear more about what you actually witnessed of the incident. Right, I can fill you in there, my lord. There's a huge bang from the stage, and then another one.
Hold it!
So you actually saw the accident happen from up in the air? Yep, isn't it amazing what a detective gets to do, eh? I'm telling you, Odo, being a lawyer's a mug's game. You should join the force and we can go flying together. You know me so well. Yes, well, anyway, could you tell us exactly what you saw, do you think? Everything. We saw everything because we were up above it all. That dodgy cove climbing into that cage and that dodgy professor pulling all them levers. And that's when it happened. That's when there was that massive bang and the cage disappeared, just like that. You are describing the moment the subject's body was decomposed by the electricity, I believe. I didn't know what to make of it. But there was another bang right in the air. I looked round and there was a huge great fireball right up next to us in the sky. And there was nothing there before.
Excuse me!
Master Gotts. Gotts? How do you pronounce that? Does your memory of the day differ? My teacher in elementary school said that when you meet someone for the first time, you should always use the full name. Yes. What was it again? Wilhelm Gottschalk, Sigismund Ormstein. Just the 4 names then. The point is, do you have something to say? Something to add in response to Detective Gino Lestrade's last remark, perhaps? Oh, get it right, Otto. It's Inspector Lestrade. Why does everyone have a problem with how I address them at the moment? That is not what I saw. Oh? Yeah, there was a second explosion and it was right beside our balloon, that is true. But I'm sure... Which is what I said, isn't it? 1 minute there was nothing there, and the next a massive explosion. My teacher at elementary school said that when someone else is speaking, if you are rude enough to interrupt, you will have the most awful life imaginable. All Bohemians brought up to be so full of joy? Yeah, I still have lots of money. And just before the second explosion happened next to our balloon, I clearly witnessed a green balloon flying in the sky. Green balloon. You what? I never saw nothing like that. Well, I did. I saw it, and you can't say I didn't. I will complain to the council. I will cry and scream. My testimony is truth. I am Bohemian Prince. You cannot say it's a lie. That is not allowed. Playing the bleeding royalty guard, are you? Typical. Says the orphan who likes to remind people she works for Her Majesty's police. In that case, young man, I must ask you to amend your formal testimony in the interests of cordial national relations between Great Britain and Bohemia. It was not the skies that exploded, it was a green balloon that was next to ours at the time. Hold it! Green balloon, you say? Are you sure about that? Of course I'm sure. I'm a proud Bohemian Prince. All these questions are making me boring. I think you mean bored. Ugh, English is very annoying. The language of my countrymen is far superior. Lagazo is very wrong to lie. Lie? Flying balloons, they never explode. For the same reason the planets never explode. It is logical. Please tell me that doesn't mean logical. If you insult me, you insult all Bohemia. Madai? 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 I will have the army come and shoot all your stupid balloons out of the sky. All of them. Yeah, I still have lots of money. Here you are, Your Majesty, Your Highness, Your whatever. Only all international incidents were so easily resolved. Now that peaceful relations have been restored here in the courtroom, perhaps we could return to the testimony. And did you also see the moment that the cage materialized, Mr. Luna? No, I did not see the explosion there myself. However, and the cage, it fell from the sky like a stone. Did you see that actually happen? No, in reality I did not. I saw it after it hit the tower. Okay. There was a grand confusion there on the stage. I ran to see what had happened. I was terrorized by the idea that one of my balloons had crashed. I suppose they are his livelihood. But when I looked up into the sky, all of my precious balloons were still there. I saw it, though. I saw it slam into the tower. After all, I am a detective now. And tell us what you saw, Inspector Lestrade. That's what I like to hear. Definitely not doing Cockney anymore. It's more down under. I didn't get a good look in the cage, but no one went near it when it crashed into the tower. Was it you who gave the order to keep people away? Eh? Use your head, Odo. How could it have been me? I was up in a balloon, weren't I? Right. So, because I wasn't available, it was the boss who had to leg it over there. He was getting shoved and kicked all over by the panicking spectators. He tried to seal off the scene. It was a real sight to behold, I can tell you. Amazing. Oh, Inspector Gregson. So anyway, I couldn't see the cage that well because of all the smoke. And I didn't really want to see, to be honest. I was scared out of my wits. Keep it together, Inspector. The prosecution really is asserting that the demonstration was genuine, but what if it was actually some kind of switch-around trick instead? That would mean that the victim was never actually on the stage in the first place. The two explosions would have thrown everyone watching into a panic for sure, I think I need to find out more about what exactly people saw at the time. Only my balloons were not damaged. Well, canvas-like thing with rubber, and it's green, like the balloon that exploded.
Objection!
Mr. Luna, in your testimony, you said that all three of the balloons you had operating at the time were undamaged. See, that is correct. If they had been caught in the explosiones, it would have been terrible. 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 I wonder if you might know what this is. I think it may be, see, a part of a balloon. A burnt piece of the fabric from the envelope. Sorry, the envelope? Pardon, this is the large round part of the balloon which becomes filled with a hot air. It is made from very thick fabric lined with the rubber. You do not want it to rip when you are in the sky. Just as I thought. This piece of cloth was found near the experimentation stage. In other words, as Master Gotz testified, green balloon did indeed explode that day. If all the balloons in the sky above the experimentation stage belong to you, Mr. Luna, then your statement that they were all undamaged clearly contradicts the evidence. No. Ah. The balloon exploded that day. Why did the man say so? Maybe everyone on board was killed. I don't know. I've just spent 10 whole pounds of the experience. I was all with you.
Objection!
There's too many freaking voices this time around. The instantaneous kinesis did occur, but after the explosion on the stage, the point of materialization shifted to the location occupied by a balloon. Causing the balloon to explode? Yes, eminently plausible. An unfortunate traffic accident, as it were, but it changes nothing about the pertinent facts. This I cannot accept. Not, Mr. Luna. You are suggesting that I am a liar. That person's died in a balloon incidente. There's no need to get fired up, Mr. Luna, and your voice has completely changed now, sir. The victim was the sole fatality that day. That's right, and I can prove it. Balthazar Luna is not a liar. That there was no such balloon in the sky is a non-possibile. Non-possibile. He's going to kill me. You're saying it's impossible. Why? This court has more important matters to discuss than the number of balloons that were operating that day. Hey! But we can't ignore the fact that nobody appears to have known anything about this other balloon until now. My lord, the defense calls for further testimony from Mr. Luna. I concur. There is clearly more to the truth here than meets the eye. It's imperative that we clear up the issue of this phantom balloon, I feel. Witness, you will give supplementary testimony about the balloons you were operating at the exhibition. Grazie, my lord. My lord. You just stick with the Mario and it's okay. Despite how horribly racist that is. As I said, Balthazar Luna is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. All three of my balloons were carrying passengers. They fell to the ground in an explosion. What a catastrophe! Catastrophe? Catastrophe. But you can't get away with the fact from that burnt up bit of cloth we found in the scene, can you? The couples at the yard reckoned it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. This stupid ragazzo is a mistake, and my balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. So your assertion that the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you? Si, exactamente. If he even saw a balloon in the first place, I do not like the sound of it. It is very bad for business. I have a good mind to sue the land of Bohemia. If you attack us, we will fight back. It will be war. All out of war. Now I can't do your voice either. Fuck me. but I still have the money. What happened to all-out war? Mr. Luna certainly doesn't appear to be lying, but that doesn't change the fact that the testimony and evidence are contradictory here. If the defense is unable to find fault with the witness's statement, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend. The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what happened here, no matter what it takes. Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witnesses. Oh boy, here we go. Alright. As I said, there is no liar.
Hold it!
You couldn't just have forgotten one, maybe? Signore. I might not have noticed if I was given 100 lentils and one was missing. But we are talking about 3 enormous balloons. Do you believe I could make a mistake about something so grande and expensive? I took the liberty of having Inspector Gregson check this gentleman's warehouse. I have the report here. It clearly says a total of 3 balloons. It would appear no mistake has been made, then. Surely Miss Lestrade could have been sent for such a menial task? What, me? I'll tell you what I told the boss. These 10 kids like me can only count up to 2. Obviously that ain't true, but the boss spotted it and said he'd have to go himself in that case. All 3 of my balloons are carrying passengers. Sure.
Hold it!
It would be a catastrophe if they fell to the ground for any reason, I think. On that note, Mr. Luna, tell me, what is it that keeps these balloons in the sky? Are you an idiota? Sorry. That is like asking why does the candle burn bright? It burns bright because it burns bright, and the balloon flies because it flies. What else? That must be Italian for I don't know. There are 2 types of flying balloons, hot air balloons and gas balloons. Hot air balloons work on the principle of hot air being less dense than cold air, whereas gas balloons derive their lift by using a gas that is lighter than air. See, and all my balloons are filled with a magic gas, I believe. Hydrogen. Lighter than air, but highly explosive. Good lord. I do not permit smoking of the cigarettes in any of my balloons. The magic gas does not like fire. Even a small spark of static electricity could cause the entire balloon to explode. What is the matter with you, senor? All that comes out of your mouth is explosione, esplosione. I tell you, my balloons are perfectly safe. They have to be, or I cannot eat. None of my balloons exploded that day, I am completely sure. But if you still say that is what happened, you must show me the proof. Alright, so Mr. Luna had 3 balloons in the air that day. If none of them were damaged, then what was the one that exploded? Can't get away from the fact that burnout bits and cloths were there, yeah. I was surprised to find the piece of fabric still at the scene, actually. Didn't you search the area surrounding the stage for clues? Nah, I'm not into picking stuff up off the ground, me. Always works out way better. Diving into people's pockets instead. So much for the new career path. Mind you, the boss was on his hands and knees picking up all kinds of rubbish from the ground, from the floor, whatever. Thing is, though, the cage went crashing into the crystal tower, didn't it? So that's where most of the investigating was going on. Even so, I would have thought someone from Scotland Yard would have gathered it up as evidence. Cole, listen to you. You stumble across a bit of balloon and suddenly you're the best investigator in the world. Pardon? Well, you ain't got a badge, have you? Like this one. I could arrest you with this if I wanted to. I wouldn't put it past her. Come to think of it, there was talk of some scorching on the ground at a meeting we had about the investigation. The coppers at the yard reckon it was probably debris.
Hold it!
There was considerable damage to the stage and surrounding area, wasn't there? Yeah, some of the cows what were watching the experiment were caught in the blast and injured. Good job the old contraption didn't keel over, eh? I hadn't even considered that. It seems there was a great panic after the incident occurred. Nevertheless, the police shouldn't have missed a torn piece of the envelope from a balloon. Inspector Gregson can expect repercussions. Like me swiping all his fish and chips, eh? The man's sole pleasure. But none of this matters. That scrap of balloon envelope means nothing. Niente. Stupido ragazzo is mistaken.
Hold it!
You mean the color is wrong? Si, signor. I do not have any green balloons in my warehouse. And yet, a piece of green cloth was found at the scene, and it's unmistakably from a balloon. Well, I do not know how that can be. For the sake of argument, let's say that the green balloon did explode above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude that it happened on the day in question. Why not? Balloons explode all the time, apparently. It's very dangerous. We have no safety here. There have been recreational balloon flights over Hyde Park operating from before the Great Exhibition. One could have exploded on some earlier date. Unfortunate, as I'm sure you'd agree. I'm sure something like that you would have heard about in the papers, though. You believe it may be from some earlier balloon accident that predates the exhibition that no one reported in the news? Si, exactamente, as the signor says. It is not from one of my balloons. Clearly this little ragazzo... this little ragazzo from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw.
Excuse me.
Is something wrong, Master Gotz? He's Master Wilhelm Gottsrick Sigismund Ornstein. It's on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, something is very wrong. I know what I saw. There was a green balloon there. I swear it. I swear all over Bohemia. You can speak as much bad language as you like, but it changes nothing. I have the money. If you do not have evidence, ragazzo, then I must tell your parents to punish you, eh? Perhaps we'll let the judge decide when it comes to punishments. Evidence? What is this evidence? To give a simple example, young man, a photograph, for instance, some tangible proof of what you claim. Well, why didn't you say so sooner? I have the photograph here. Good gracious. What? This is that Deus Ex Machina shit where they line you up to a point where you can no longer progress with what you've got. I've still got hot sauce packets on my desk. What the fuck? And then they suddenly provide you with evidence to start going off on something else. I hate this part, by the way. Oh shit, I passed over that. I took lots and lots of photographs of the Crystal Tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London, of the what? The hot eel cellar? The balloon? And the instantaneous kinesis experiment? Did you take a picture of that? Yeah, one picture. Really? You did take one? But all I wanted was a ride in a balloon. I was not interested in boring experiments. Never mind that. Can you show us that photograph? Of course, and then you will see. You will see that I am not lying. That I really did get a green balloon. See a green balloon. That I really did see the green balloon. That I saw the green balloon. Well, I see you're all shocked to speak. Too shocked to speak. Too shocked to speak. I cannot read no more. Swapping between all these damn accents that I can't do anyway in the first place is really hard. Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man. Yeah, perhaps you cannot see that it was a green balloon from this photograph, but that is not my fault. That isn't the fault of the stupid person who made the camera. Wow. That is one very bohemian-sounding cry, if you say so. Very well, the court will accept this photograph as evidence. Photograph of the balloon has been entered in the court record. It's not my fault. It's the fault of the person who made the camera. Well, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with you. In any case, when exactly did you take that photograph? Well, it was on the day of the big explosion. You don't say. When I pressed the shutter release, there was this very loud bang, and a hot wind rushed over my face. I'm mixing your accents now. That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred. Let's take a look at it. A beam of light might have something to do with it, and it's an empty balloon. Very interesting. Well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give the flying fig. Lovely language you've picked up. As I thought, Mr. Luna's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young bohemian boy claims to have seen another fourth balloon. But Mr. Luna vehemently denies the possibility. And it's hard to imagine the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency must tell us something, I'm sure. As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. All three of my balloons were carrying passengers. Okay. So we can show him the picture of the balloon that's not carrying a passenger.
Objection!
Unfortunately, the photograph Master Gotts took can't tell us the color of the balloon, but it can tell us something else, something crucially important. What? It shows that the pictured balloon wasn't carrying any passengers. Oh, my goodness, you're right. Surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers. There would be no sense in it otherwise. See, there, for pleasure. For seeing the view, my balloons only fly with passengers. Which tells us that the pictured balloon isn't one of them. So when the incident occurred that day, there was a fourth balloon in the skies above the experimentation stage. The mysterious green balloon. I know nothing, niente. I can only tell you one thing. If this balloon was not carrying passengers, then it was not one of mine.
Objection!
There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by their great exhibition, and managed to operate balloon flights on Mr. Luna's patch without him realizing. See, the competizione tried to steal my profits. With empty balloons. I did not know this because of the esperimento that went wrong on the stage. This fourth balloon exploded at the very same moment Mr. Asman was beamed from the stage below. Right, so them scraps that fell on the ground after and left them scorch marks, they didn't come from the stage at all. It was bits of the balloon raining down. Because no one was in it, it didn't get no attention. A mysterious fourth balloon carrying no passengers, silently floating over the experimentation stage.
Objection!
The photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one and operated by some rogue trader. Clearly, it has nothing to do with the case.
Its relevance does elude me, I must say.
The court has seen sufficient evidence and heard ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded. Really? Have we really got to the truth yet? No, I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favor. What else can this photograph tell us? Is there nothing more we can learn from it? But wait, there's more.
Objection!
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait. Please don't give your decisions yet. The photograph from Master Goetz may well be hiding one more vital clue.
What's that? I don't remember your voice.
A vital clue.
Objection!
We're well past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now. So tell the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove? The cause of the explosione. We can reasonably assume that the pictured balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion. Yeah, that's right, yeah. It was not my fault. Evidently. Because a birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly and explosively ignited.
Objection!
No, that's not what happened. What?
It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph before the court.
Of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see. And what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have, in a way that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. The clue that heavily suggests the real reason the balloon exploded is, perhaps, the searing white light. But, no. That. The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film.
I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort.
If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear that the nature of this bright line, or what this bright line really is.
Goodness, what is that?
Fuck, I hate your voice most of all.
Undeniably some flash of light, yes.
Now, golly, do you think it might be lightning? From the ground? Although I guess it does start at the ground, doesn't it?
But it couldn't have been a finer day.
I believe we may be looking at fire.
About a fire, heading straight for the balloon, like an arrow.
Indeed.
Even to my aging eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some sort.
There's seriously like 12 voices in this episode, and it is killing me.
My word, are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon?
Objection!
That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height.
Objection!
Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how that is exactly what it did happen. What evidence? Now it's my turn, you bastard.
If such evidence exists, counsel, then for goodness sakes present it, man. What evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly for the balloon?
Perhaps this.
Take that!
This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene.
Good lord, is that a crossbow?
An arrow dipped in oil and set alight could have been shot from this weapon. sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon. Are you suggesting that crossbow was used to deliberately...
Blimey, you're right. That streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it?
Then the esplosione of the balloon, it was... Very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen gas inside it. No.
Order, order, Council. This is an extraordinary supposition.
If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. It's the noise of the discharge, of course. That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently.
Well, yeah, if someone had shot a gun off at the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion there's a very big panic anyway, no?
I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong.
Objection!
Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Nipponese friend? If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued...
Wait a minute. What are you really saying here? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all, or what?
My goodness me. Now I understand. That's what that sinking feeling is about. I think there's a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along.
What? Did I just hear that correctly, Council?
There's no going back now. The horse is bolted. Let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage in the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you'll all agree it's entirely plausible that what I've just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day.
Good grief.
Objection!
This is ludicrous. What you've described is no science experiment. It's child's play, a contemptible display of stage magic. Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said that the experiment was a scientific impossibility, in which case this is the only way to explain what happened that day. And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the crystal tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that? Well... If I may put in a word, as a man of magic myself, such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3. All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman, and having this other man appear on the stage to front the show as a body double. Yes, of course. So, in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start.
Objection!
That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside it would have been scattered to the four winds when it exploded, not to mention that he probably would have died from suffocating inside the hydrogen. No one would ever have embarked on such a risky venture.
Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend upon the mixture ratio.
Juror number 4.
Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered.
The mixture ratio?
Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns. That would have been unavoidable. But not to such an extent as to render the whole scene charade impossible.
So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception, to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred.
Well, goodness me.
And if we accept that this is what happened, it means that the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. But they found the body on the ground? No, they found it in the tower? Where the fuck did they find this guy? I don't remember. So shattered through the glass on the ground there. So, okay. So they didn't find him on the stage. The stage was destroyed. He was... The body was found in the tower. God, this whole thing is screwy. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant, who was on stage in full view the entire time. This would be very hard for the prosecution to counter, which is why he'll probably do it in the next sentence. Lord Van Zeeks can't credibly maintain that Professor Harebrain is a suspect now. Harebrain's going to burst in because
You just disproved my theory.
Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Professor? But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry? What's all this about, Mr. Harebrain? I, Albert Harebrain, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Odie Asman. Yes, it was me, with my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver. What are you doing?
Order. Order. Defendant, explain this sudden confession.
Professor Harebrain, what are you talking about? It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypothesis, and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick, all an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? No, you'd have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would all be over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it. It's clear that you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable that you were duped, Professor. You'll just let me... I can prove... Eric? Yes. I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever you say. I swear it. So please, ensure the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice at this critical juncture. Here's to my learned Nipponese friend. What? And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense's position in the light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, Special Dispensation for Scientific There has to be a shortening of this. For real. that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will demand their rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. I'm not sure how a lawyer can bypass a law. I'm not really sure what we're supposed to be doing here.
Well, counsel, what is the defense's official position on the matter?
Well, Professor Hairbrain, my client, actually asked of me to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence, or do I uphold my client's request but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind? After going through this many fake accents, it's pretty scrambled right now. Not gonna lie. Mr. Naruhodo, there's no escape here. I have to make a choice, but it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something, but what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was, in fact... What did he say earlier about what he promised? I don't remember what I said I'd promised. We already kind of had this discussion earlier, though. I think it was to see to find the truth. So it's a conjuring trick, it's gotta be. If it's the wrong choice, it'll just end it and we'll have to restart. No, I can't say it. My client placed his faith in me. I can't just let him down. What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's, what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long. Susato-san? But what are you... Ah, my first Susato takedown in 6 months. There'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand and try and end this frickin' episode that's been going on for an hour. Which is working out not what I have to give up on, but what I can protect. Professor Hairbrain. Yes. Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth, too. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself, too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you built with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must both pursue now. Right. Well, so much for a very well-established law, my learned Nipponese friend. So you finally opened your eyes. What? And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Having heard from my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say? Barrack? Lord Van Zieks. Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. In truth, there is one thing, something I've remembered that's of relevance. Nani? On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow.
I beg your pardon, you imbecile. Why didn't you say so before?
Professor, did the man have any distinguishing features? What did he look like? Tall, taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter and whiter than mine. Let me see. One less lens than me, too, a monocle, a rather stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular will help to positively identify the man. You see, I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention. What? He built the machine? That's right. Mr. Asman introduced me to him a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Tripper. Enoch?
Dribber! Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered.
Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. That man's an abomination.
Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he?
I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of this nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but stage trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal is after the government's research grant money.
When magicians are in need of money, I've heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Trepper's name before.
The man is both an engineer and a magician. Magician, yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Trepper for you.
Okay. Okay.
We're still not done yet, oh my god.
So it's true then. My invention and my great machine. It was just a grand illusion. Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Dribber's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely. Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted. Which is why you are so opposed to it being investigated, I presume. I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen. But at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick and a work of deception, then everything I'd worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, all my whole life would be over. I was terrified at the prospect. So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Dribber. I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it. It's entirely possible that Mr. Asman and Mr. Dribber
We're the same people.
were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money. This still doesn't explain who that guy is, if the double was in the balloon, or if the real guy was in the balloon and that. When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Dribber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore. I know this episode's been going on too long. Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? I almost got it that time. I almost got it. I was that damn close. Yes, please go ahead. I'm very sorry.
appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Van Zeeks,
My lord.
the court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical.
Yes, Mr. Trevor.
Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena.
With pleasure, my lord.
Now, counsel for the defense.
Yes, my lord.
When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing, and one thing alone from you. Evidence that the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused.
I understand.
Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. Morning.
Nowhere near done with this game yet. This is killing me. Okay, I'm sure after this little bit of dialogue here, this little strip of dialogue, we end the actual episode with the saving and all that stuff. But we may as well just end it here. So I'll see you next time.